Okay, hi everybody. This is probably going to look a little bit weird. This is the first time we've done this. I'm Sam Hunter of Hunter's Design Studio, and I have with me today my friend Cheryl. Cheryl is a long arm quilter here in Portland, and one of the inner circle wrote me and said, I'm struggling to sew curves. I'm working on a drunkard's path block. Can you give me a hand? And curves are not my superpower, but curves are definitely one of Cheryl's superpowers. So I've enlisted her to get on a Zoom call with me, and we're going to have a quick chit chat, and she's going to try to demo it. We're probably going to do this in one take, and it might end up being a little bit shaggy. So just bear with us. We're going to do our best to show you how to sew some curves. So Cheryl, thank you for being here. Take it away.
Okay, so I have my pieces already all cut, my inner and my outer. If you've never cut curves before, this tiny little 28 millimeter is like what you want. Like, it's great for getting inside like these curves where it gets really tricky. I also have, if you can see this iron line, I folded it in half and ironed a little crease in here that you're going to use to line up. I did it on this piece as well. And you can just iron like a whole bunch at once if you're doing like a gajillion blocks. I like to glue baste. Any of the fabric glues will work. This is Sew Line, but I know there's like a Fons and Porter one, and all of the refills are interchangeable.
And we're going to link to all of those in the show notes on the YouTube channel. So don't worry about the products right now. We'll list them all out for you and get you some links.
So I'm going to try and tilt the camera here. So glue, and I just do one little dab right where that fold line is. Can you see what I'm doing? Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then this guy goes, it's fold line to fold line, and make sure, of course, you have your right sides together. It can feel a little weird because obviously the lines of the seam aren't laying with each other. Just press that so that they're sort of stuck together.
Okay, so with this kind of glue, we don't have to get in there and iron it. Like if I was using the Elmer's school glue, I would have to tap it with the iron to dry it out. So this glue just like dries up and holds, okay?
Yep, it dries and holds right away. The only thing you really want to make sure is that you keep it sort of within that 1/4 inch so that you're not sticking your needle in it a whole bunch as you sew later.
Okay.
But it should be pretty dry by then. I haven't had a problem with it gumming up my machine, but just don't, go and just put it all over everything.
Okay, so being sparse is better than being overly generous with it.
Yes.
Okay.
So just a little line across the edge. And the thing you want to look out for here is that you're trying not to stretch.
Okay.
You don't want to introduce any more stretch because, they're curves and there's going to be some bias and some pulling and stuff. And then I like to take the two edges and put them together like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might need to do a little bit of stretching. What you want to take care to do is not stretch this outer piece, because then you're going to end up with a curve that's like bigger than it should be.
So if you're going to ease anything, we ease the pie, not the outside.
Exactly. And you're going to feel like you're stretching it a little bit as you try and just sort of make those edges meet.
So yeah, if any of you have had any experience at all putting a sleeve in a garment, this is going to look really familiar.
Yeah. And the glue is nice because if you get to your point at the end and there's like a little tuck or something where things aren't quite meeting, you can just pull it apart again and try again. I don't know how many times it'll re-stick, but I know it does it at least like once or twice. Like right here, you can see the brown is kind of over the edge a little bit, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm going to kind of pull that out and just try again. and it holds. And so now we're going to do that with the other half of the curve.
And while Cheryl's doing this, I wanted to let you know that her Instagram account is Cheryl, is it Cheryl Quilts PDX?
Yep.
And you can see a lot of the things that Cheryl's done with curves. She's a big follower of Libs Elliott, and a lot of Libs's patterns have some really interesting curved shapes in them. And I think this is where Cheryl has learned her mastery, is doing Libs's patterns. So go take a look at her Instagram account, and you're looking for a really beautiful rainbow heart called La Fin du Monde, or the end of the world, which I suppose isn't something we should be talking about today.
I know, right? Okay, and so I'm just kind of easing it in.
There we go.
And if it's your first time doing curves, I would suggest going bigger rather than smaller. It's more forgiving when you do a bigger curve. The little ones can feel like you're just trying to fit two things that don't meet together.
Yeah, so now this is the time to do tiny 2-inch pieces.
Yeah. So now I'm going to go over to my machine. See if I can balance this right here.
All right, this is really good. So if you can see, Cheryl, can you point to your seam guide? Okay, so this is a great little bumper with a screw on it that sets up your seam allowance. We've had a question from the inner circle about finding a good 1/4 inch, and I'll probably start recording that later on this week. But this is a trick that Jen Carlton Bailey teaches, and I did a curves class with Jen, and I know Cheryl did the same class with me. And Jen teaches this as a way to get a really accurate and easy to find 1/4 inch seam when you're doing your curves. So if your machine bed has a screw hole for it, you can go look for one of these. The last time I bought one, I want to say it was maybe 12 bucks on Amazon, but again, I'll find it and link it up for you.
Okay, so hopefully you'll kind of be able to see what I'm doing. I know this isn't from the same perspective, but I didn't want to try and like put my iPad in my lap and have it be like falling all over the place. So just kind of stick it under there, try and make those match.
Yeah.
And not be all, you know.
That's where I goof up all the time, is I don't have those guys square to each other, and then the side of the block gets the wonkies.
And mine still get the wonkies a little bit too. The nice thing about fabric is there's ease and stretch, and you can kind of fudge things a little bit sometimes. So as I go, okay, you totally can't see what I'm doing.
I told you it was going to be pretty basic here, guys.
Okay, so as I'm sewing it, oops. Am I still here?
Yes, you're still here.
Oh, good. I hit a button. Okay, so as I'm...
You took a break.
As I'm sewing, I'm going to be trying to sort of push these like the part where there's a little bit of excess fabric, sort of push it in with my fingers and sort of finesse it so that I don't get tucks. Okay. Kind of looking ahead as I go so that I don't get to the end and have everything just pushed back to the edge, and then it's all super wonky. And that takes a little bit of practice, but that's why the gentle curves are maybe a little bit easier. So let me put this back where it was, and then I'll sew. Oops. And sometimes I'll lift up my foot and kind of shift things around a little bit to make things keep going under the foot. correct. And it's sewn.
Yay.
So first I'm gonna press all of this just to set the seam.
Okay.
And then
which way do we press? That
think,
was something else our inner circle member asked, is like she feels like when she's pressing, she's probably introducing something that she doesn't.
So it's pressing the crust in.
Okay.
And if your curve is really big, you can press it the other way. I just find some like funniness over here sometimes when you join your blocks, if you have this seam out here and then you have like seams on seams, and it just gets really weird. So let me move over to the ironing board. And you can't see that at all.
Nice bear paws.
Thank you. Okay. And so I'm trying to not press any wrinkles in and just get that seam. And then I'm going to flip it, and I just sort of gently sometimes will press with my fingers first, because it can be really easy to pull a block out of square because there's so much bias around that diagonal. And then I try to not iron. I try to just press. I'm not always really careful about that when I'm pressing my blocks, but I am more careful with curves because it can be so easy to put them out of. I turn it over, kind of hit it again.
Wow, that looks awesome.
And you can't really tell with this, but it's still not like perfectly square. I still get a lot of flaring sometimes on these edges. And if it's a template that isn't like big enough that you can trim back, I've found that you can just make the fabric do what you want for the most part, as long as you've been careful not to just completely stretch all of this out.
Okay.
A little bit of wonkiness is kind of par for the course for curves.
Yeah.
Especially when they get smaller. I've had small curves that I'm like, this is not a square block, and I just kind of sew it together and hope for the best, and it always looks great.
Okay. Yeah, that's that sort of thing with bias, that the good thing is that bias stretches and the bad thing is that bias stretches. You know,
exactly.
It work for you, or you can completely overdo it and then it becomes an enemy. So
yeah.
Any other hints and tips? Probably slow down, right? Just take
just with the sewing, slowing it down and kind of paying attention to feeding that fabric in so that you're not creating any like tucks. And the glue pen is really just, I mean, I can't imagine trying to put pins in curves and trying to get it all to like work together. The glue just makes it all go so much more smoothly.
Yeah, I did a drunkard's path some years ago, and I want to say they were 6-inch blocks. They weren't small. And I was having so much trouble on the machine that I ended up doing them all by hand with pins. And, you know, I kind of, it was my carry around project for a couple of years. But I mean, I was bleeding every time I picked it up because it looked like, it looked like a, voodoo doll of pins things. So. All right, then. Well, Cheryl, thanks so much for helping us out. And if we have any more questions coming at you, we'll get you involved, and appreciate you stepping in and helping out the people here. It was really lovely.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.